Yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good morning, and whatever time zone that you're in on the Earth, or if you're up there on the space station. We invite everybody. It is May the 26th, 2026, 1 year Bible session. And we're glad to see everybody here on Zoom and are on YouTube. In just a minute, and I will post the Bible readings on YouTube. There you go. And then search for the Zoom page. Here we are. Well, there. Our prayer today is another one that was reposted by Chad Prather. Pray with me. Lord, in the name of Jesus, strengthen us in every battle we face. When fear rises, when exhaustion weighs heavy, and when the enemy whispers lies in our hearts, remind us that you are greater than anything standing against us. Remind us. Help us stand firm in our truth, clothed in the full armor of God, with faith that extinguishes every fiery dart of doubt, fear, and discouragement. Lord, teach us to remain steadfast when life feels uncertain, when we are tempted to quit. Give us endurance. When anxiety tries to overtake us, fill us with your peace. Teach us to pray instead of panic, to worship instead of worry, and to trust you even when we cannot yet see the outcome. Let your word become our strength, and your presence becomes our refuge. Jesus, thank you that the cross was victory and the resurrection is our hope. Because you overcame, we can overcome. Let every trial produce deeper faith, greater courage, and a stronger testimony of your faithfulness. We declare that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and we place our confidence fully in you. And at this time, we do go to our prayer list. We're praying for our president and our country, our government, great and small, our troops, that everyone makes decisions with wisdom, discernment, and with prayer from God to God. And now that we're going to have we're going to have an extended rain forecast. It's going to affect everybody. They're not going to Camp David to do any signing for anything. They're going to do it in the Oval Office, which could be a good thing. We pray for Pam and his family and all of his platforms for Patriot Soapbox. We pray for the hosts and all the chatters, and I include all the chatters because we've got some sick ones. Some of the hosts are ill too, but they keep on coming. And you've got to know that that takes great strength. And we pray for a lot of our family, Patty and Brian, Reality Fuss, Tanya, Gatorgrad's sister, Tim, Barb, both of the Michaels, the Kath, Soko and her father, Ragnar, Half Right, Kevin W., Marvin, Rising 123, Abraham, Tulsi's husband, Danny, Dearman, Justapug, Jim and Joe Hart, Pumi, Rudy Giuliani, Esma, Communist Citizens, Cold Steel, 2020 Liberty, Best Nani Ever, Moanon, Susie Wiles, Kinsley Wren, Maru 9, Leslie, Lynn, Sonia, and Son of Liberty. And I go on to make a great outcry that God helps us, because there's a lot of people that have different kinds of cancer. And all cancer is horrible, but some are worse than others. We need to pray for all of them too. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen.
And this is a good prayer for after Memorial Day. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, our transgressions, as we forgive our debtors, our people that transgress against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Well, the puppies quit barking. My nephew and his wife, they have several other pets, but they have some puppies. They're black Labradors. The big one comes up to my knee just about now. And I think they're only about 3 months or so old. Okay, here we go with the Bible readings. 2 Samuel, chapters 9, 10, and 11. John 15, Psalm 119, verses 49 to 64, and Proverbs 16, 1 through 3. Second Samuel 9. And David said, is there any yet that is left of the house of Saul, that I might show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was of the house of Saul a servant, whose name is Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, art thou Ziba? And he said, thy servant is he. And the king said, is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I might show the kindness of God unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath yet a son, which is lame on his feet. And the king said unto him, where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, in Lodebar. Then David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, from Lodebar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his feet and did reverence. And David said, Mephibosheth, Mephibosheth? And he answered, behold, thy servant. And David said unto him, fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee in all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul, and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread alway at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, According to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son, whose name was Micah. And all that dwelt in the house of Ziba was servants unto Mephibosheth. And so Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table, and was lame on both of his feet. And it came to pass after this, that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came in to the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun their lord, Thinkest thou that David doeth honor thy father, that he hath sent comforters unto thee? Hath not David rather sent his servants unto thee to search the city, and to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Wherefore Hanun took David's servants, and shaved off one half of their beards, and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon went and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and of King Micah 1,000 men, and Ishtab 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering in of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and Ishtab and Micah were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind, he chose of all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai, his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. And he said, If the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. Be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people, and for the cities of our gods, and the Lord do that which seemeth him good. And Joab drew nigh, and the people that were with him, unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab entered from the children of Ammon, and came to Israel. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadir Hadarezer sent and brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river. They came to Hilam, and Shobath, the captain of the host of Hadarezer, went before them. And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together and passed over Jordan and came to Hilam. And the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel. And David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there. And when all the kings that were the servants of Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon any more. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. And it came to pass in an eventide that David arose from his bed, and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanliness, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the wars prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house to eat and to drink, and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. And David said to Uriah, Tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. And at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but went not down to his house. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. And it came to pass, when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, when thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king, and if so that be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, wherefore approached ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech the son of Jerubesheth? Did not a woman cast a piece of millstone upon him from the wall, that he died in Thebez? Why went ye nigh the wall? Then say thou, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. And the messenger said unto David, surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall at thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said unto the messenger, thus shalt thou say unto Joab, let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devours one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. I hate it when it moves up like that. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. You know that had been cold-blooded. All right, John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather him and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments, and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that ye love one another, as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends, if you do whatsoever I command you. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known unto you. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and adorned and ordained you, that ye should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, that ye love one another. If the world hates you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word that I have said unto you. The servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. If I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin, but now they have no cloak for their sin. He that hateth me hateth my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin. But now have they both seen and hated both me and my Father. But this cometh to pass, that the word might be fulfilled that is written in their law. They hated me without a cause. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, even the Spirit of truth, which proceedeth from the Father, he shall testify of me. And ye shall also bear witness, because ye have been with me from the beginning.
Wow, that was long, Teresa. Both of them.
Yeah,
I bet
and
you
I
need
made
to
it
wet
with
your. Huh?
and I made it without making too many mistakes.
No, not at all. I bet you need to wet your whistle.
Oh yeah. Well, here you go.
119:49 through 64. I'm just going to say right now, if I get a phone call, I'm going to get off here. Okay, I'll need to take it
Okay.
only because of yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go. Where's? Can you scroll down a little bit?
Down. Oh, but yeah, I sure can.
It looks like it's
There.
there. We go. Remember the word unto thy servant, upon which thou hast caused me to hope. This is my comfort in my affliction, for the word hath quickened me. The proud have had me greatly in derision, yet have I not declined from the law. I remembered thy judgments of old, O Lord, and have comforted myself. Honor hath taken hold upon me because of the wicked that forsake thy law. Thy statutes have been my songs in the house of my pilgrimage. I have remembered thy name, O Lord, in the night, and have kept thy law. This I had because I kept thy precepts. Thou art my portion, O Lord. I have said that I would keep thy words. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. I thought on my ways and turned my feet unto thy testimonies. I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments. The bands of the wicked have robbed me, but I have not forgotten thy law. At midnight I will rise to give thanks unto thee because of the righteous judgments. I am a companion of all of them that fear thee, and of them that keep thy precepts. The earth, O Lord, is full of thy mercy. Teach me thy statutes.
Well,
Proverbs.
yeah.
Proverbs 16, 1 through 3. The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established.
And thank you, Shelley.
You are welcome.
Okay. Let's see. Well, there we go. And our message from Dr. Missler is an hour and 4 minutes today.
Well, we're in 2 Chronicles, chapters 9 through 12. And this is just going to continue the Davidic dynasty. We'll have a chapter on the final chapter on Solomon, and then we'll get into Rehoboam and all of that. Now, 1st and 2nd Chronicles take the form of a history. David and Judah are the focal points because the emphasis is on the priestly and Levitical orders. First and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings are the historic, the political record. 1st and 2nd Chronicles is the religious or priestly view of it all. Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles probably were written by the same collection of scholars or scribes operating under Ezra probably. Because Chronicles takes us up to the Babylonian captivity, Ezra and Nehemiah, what happened subsequently. So they're all together, and they obviously had access to a very substantial library because there's all kinds of letters accessed between all the major political leaders of that time. And from the point of view of the timeline that we had in Learn the Bible in 24 Hours, obviously the monarchy starts with Saul and goes until the exiles of various kinds. And 1st Samuel takes us up to the beginning of David. 2nd Samuel is really the story of David. It's parallel to 1st Chronicles in effect. From Solomon on, we have 1st and 2nd Kings. And in some renderings, obviously 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Kings in some Bibles, but it's the same material. And 1st and 2nd Kings split Elijah and Elisha actually. But anyway, 1st Chronicles is really parallel to 2nd Samuel. And 2nd Chronicles will be essentially from Solomon on, right up to the Babylonian exile. And where 1st and 2nd Kings dealt with both southern and northern kingdoms and how they fought and all those details, and are really the political, the historical record, Chronicles really just focuses it on the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. And so we had in 1st Chronicles, obviously 9 chapters of genealogies and then the reign of David. In 2nd Chronicles, we had 9 chapters that deal with Solomon. We're taking the 9th of those 9th chapters tonight. And then we're going to go right into the rest of it is the continuing Davidic dynasty. Okay, so we're in the reign of Solomon. Original name was Jedediah. Solomon was his royal name. And his pen name, private name, with Bathsheba was Lemuel, many scholars believe. It seems to, and it's an inference, but it may be justified. And he's also calls himself the Koheleth, or the preacher for Ecclesiastes and so on. So he was also a collector of dark sayings, as Proverbs 30 deals with. He was the second son, the first surviving son of Bathsheba, and the first after their legal marriage in 2 Samuel 12, probably born about 1035 BC. He succeeded his father on the throne probably as a late teenager, 16, 17 years old. And his father, Nathan, and Bathsheba and Nathan recognized that Adonijah was getting ambitious and starting to declare himself as king. So they encouraged David to cut that off by establishing Solomon as his successor before he dies, not wait for his death, which he did. Adonijah was the 4th son of David, and his elder brothers died, so he became the heir apparent, presumably. But Solomon, his younger brother, was preferred above him as far as David's concerned. So Adonijah, while his father was dying, tried to cause himself to be proclaimed king. But Nathan and Bathsheba headed that off by getting David to give orders that Solomon would be at once proclaimed and admitted to the throne. So that's why Solomon was a little young, but that's the way David wanted it, and so he headed off Adonijah. Adonijah fled, but when apprehended, he received a pardon for his conduct as long as he showed himself a worthy man, according to 1 Kings 1:5. Well, he didn't learn. He tried a second attempt to gain the throne and was seized and put to death. His accomplices were also, however, were forgiven. Solomon still might have spared Adonijah, but there's an intrigue going on with Abishag, David's concubine, who probably was the person that's featured in the opera known as Song of Songs. But anyway, Solomon was merciful to the rest of his brothers. And before his death, David gave him a whole list of things to do and gave him his instructions. That's all listed in 1 Kings. And then Solomon arranges his affairs, marries the daughter of Pharaoh of Egypt, and the last half of his reign gets all messed up because he indulges in all these wives, 700 of them, plus 300 concubines, 1,000 women. Whew. But the problem is that they all brought with them their pagan practices, and he tolerates that, and that eventually, that toleration brings his downfall. So, it took 7 years to build the temple, 13 years to build his royal palace, which was huge. And in front of the house of the porch of pillars and so forth. Then there was the house of the forest of Lebanon was a huge hallway for like an armory, if you will. And then in front of that was the hall of judgment and his throne room, and there was also a portion of it was set aside for the daughter of Pharaoh. So it was really an awesome. Solomon was quite a builder. Now, typologically, Solomon is often overlooked, and typologically, all through everything detail about him is littered in sixes. And we want to be sensitive to that. We'll talk a little bit about that in this session. The Seal of Solomon is the ancient rendering of what is now known as the Magen David, the Shield of David. But that's a recent appellation, emerges from about the 14th century, that recently. Much earlier, it is known as the Seal of Solomon. It was used by occultic practitioners. Who knows how, it's very fragmentary. It's interesting how Solomon, all through the New Testament, is used in a diminutive sense. David is always extolled as great. Solomon was great, but not quite great enough. The lilies in the valley, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. He's always used as a standard that something else is exceeding. Anyway, let's move in. Chapter 9, the visit of the Queen of Sheba. Now, this gal is quite a gal. I want you to understand, she lives 1,200 miles away. There's no railroads, no airplanes. When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove Solomon with hard questions at Jerusalem, with a very great company and the camels that bear spices and gold in abundance and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. 1,200 miles. She really must have had a yearning to find out what was behind all this fame. Here's a secluded Arabian queen that would break through the immemorial customs of her land and put forth the energy to brave the perils of a 1,200-mile journey on beasts of burden. She carried it out safely. She must have wanted to come very badly. I hesitate to go 1,200 miles in an airplane. I have to want to very badly to do that. So anyway, she communed with him of all that was in her heart, and Solomon told her all her questions. And there was nothing hid from Solomon which he told her not. These two were apparently, the term we might use is intimate. There is a legend we're going to talk about that she gave birth to a son for Solomon that is at least claimed to be the lineage all the way to Haile Selassie. We'll talk about that here in a minute. When the Queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon and the house that he had built and the meat of his table and the sitting of his servants and the attendance of his ministers and their apparel, his cupbearers also and their apparel, and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. She was filled with amazement. Now, she was a queen from southern part of Arabia. She was no country hick. She knew the game, and she saw his wealth and the opulence there. She was blown away. And she said to the king, "It was a true report which I heard in mine own land of thine acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not their words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the one half of the greatness of thy wisdom was not told me, for thou exceedest the fame that I heard." That's probably where we get that expression. The half of it wasn't even told me. She was told so much she didn't believe it, and that wasn't the half of it. That's really what the net of it is. That's pretty straightforward communication here. Happy are thy men, happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee and hear thy wisdom. His staff apparently communicated joy, not oppression, not slavery, happy. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighteth in thee to set thee on his throne to be king for the Lord thy God. Because thy God loved Israel to establish them forever, therefore made he thee king over them to do judgment and justice. She's saying God must really love your people to give them a king like you. That's the flavor of what I think she's saying there. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold. Talents, about 70, 80 pounds, maybe 90. Whoo-wee. She brought carfare. And of spices great abundance and precious stones. Neither was there any such spice as the queen of Sheba gave the king of Solomon. And the servants also of Hiram, and the servants of Solomon, which brought gold from Ophir, brought algum trees and precious stones. And the king made of algum trees terraces to the house of the Lord, and to the king's palace, and harps and psalteries for singers. And there were none such seen before in the land of Judah. And King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which she had brought unto the king. So she turned and went away to her own land, she and her servants. We have no idea how long she was there. It wasn't a weekend visit. And yet we have no real idea. And that gives rise to this Ethiopian legend we're going to talk about. This isn't just a casual legend. It is the official belief. It's in the Constitution of Ethiopia. The Ethiopians' claim to the Queen of Sheba is detailed in the famous epic Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings. And it's based on a visit described in the Bible, but adds that the queen bore a son, Menelik the first, if you will, to King Solomon. That's what's added to this epic. And this epic is a 13th century, they traced it that far back, AD we're talking. So when Menelik was grown, presumably, he visited his father, Solomon, who anointed him to rule Africa and sent the sons of his own counselors to assist Menelik as king. That's the concept, that's the story. And the young men were reluctant to leave the famous temple in Jerusalem, especially as it contained the Ark of the Covenant. So the legend is that they secretly removed the Ark of the Covenant and left a replica. And they took it with them to Ethiopia. And that's the legend, the Ethiopian legend. It is an official view inculcated in the history of Ethiopia. It is quickly disprovable from the Bible. So you have most people who have encountered this legend. Graham Hancock wrote a book, The Sign and the Seal, and Grant Jeffries has written some stuff about it. Bob Cornuke and I, Bob has really gotten into this. Bob and I have visited Ethiopia on several occasions. And so when you do that, you encounter this view of the Ethiopians. For centuries, the Ethiopian tradition has maintained, and it is still preserved and guarded in the compound, that the ark is guarded, still there, guarded in the compound. Now, the Ethiopian legend was compiled and recorded in writing during the 13th century, but its origin is difficult to determine. And from the restoration of the Ptolemaic dynasty from the restoration to around 1270 until the death of the last emperor, Haile Selassie, the emperors of Ethiopia have claimed descent from Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Now, on the one hand, that's what the Ethiopians cling to, because those early kings promoted this tale because it benefited them to be able to claim direct descent from Solomon. You follow me? Haile Selassie did, even late as 1975. Because biblical scholars can tell that story can't be true, and I'll show you why, they dismiss the Ethiopian legend altogether. That's just their culture tradition. What everyone, virtually everyone, has overlooked is just because the legend isn't true doesn't mean they don't have the ark. It may have gotten down there by a different path, and that different path is in 2 Chronicles. It's in the text. It's tucked in there. It's subtle. You have to do some inferential reasoning, but it's quite surprising. So this isn't strong enough to be a doctrinal point to try to teach from, but I will tell you just candidly, we suspect, we don't know, we suspect they may really have the ark. They're just victims of a tale that was promoted for political reasons in their early history for local advantages. And that doesn't mean that the ark ain't there, because there's archaeological proof that it is. And we'll get through that. Haile Selassie was born in 1892. He died in 1975. He was the grandnephew of Emperor Menelik II. He was the last emperor of Ethiopia. He reigned from 1930 through about 1974 when he died. And the Solomonic claim was made part of the Constitution in 1955, obviously by Haile Selassie, who was running things at the time. But recognize it was their interest to promote this tale. It's widely regarded as non-biblical because the ark didn't disappear in Solomon's day or even after. We're going to go through a whole series of kings. You're going to get all the way down to Josiah. And when you get to Josiah, you're in 2 Chronicles chapter 35, the last chapter in Chronicles. In the days of Josiah, he instructs the Levites to put the ark in the Holy of Holies. Where is it? Why is it? That's the whole thing we'll get into. But the point is the ark is around there, a couple of centuries after the story about Menelik having taken it from, you follow me? So we'll deal with that. And furthermore, there's another aspect of this we'll talk about when we get there. Jeremiah 3:16 predicts that the ark will no longer be remembered or come to mind. The ark, according to Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 16, implies that the ark is a past. Don't look for it. It'll no longer be remembered nor come to mind. And I'm among those teachers who used to use that verse again and again to dispel the whole Ethiopian myth. People hear about it, get excited about it. We'd say, well, wait, look at Jeremiah 3:16. It says don't bother with that. We didn't read the verses that followed it, which changed the subject a little bit, but give us some insight. So we'll deal with that when we get to it later. We're going to talk about some very surprising conjectures about the Ark of the Covenant in a later session. In the meantime, let's keep moving here. Chapter 9, now the weight of the gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 606 talents of gold. That, incidentally, 60 is 60, so you got 666 talents of gold. That's his annual salary. It's mentioned twice in Scripture. When you get 666, anybody, as a Jewish rabbi will point out to you, anytime there's an unnecessary detail in a story, that's called a remez, which is like saying dig here. It's a hint of something deeper. And anybody who studied the Bible that knows nothing else about the Bible all heard about 666 is somehow, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But it's interesting that 666, from a biblical text point of view, seems to be linked to Solomon himself somehow. That's often overlooked by some of these prophecy buffs. Beside that which chapmen and merchants bought, all the kings of Arabia and governors of the country brought gold and silver to Solomon. In other words, he made a lot more than this. This was just his salary. That is just singled out for some spiritual purpose. The seal of Solomon has been found to be a very ancient symbol used by occultics. This thing here is a set of signs that's supposed to help women from getting miscarriages. But the point is, it's in the context of Jewish mysticism, ancient Jewish mysticism. And in those days, many centuries ago, it was known as the Seal of Solomon. It reemerges in history about the 14th century, where it's called the Shield of David and is adopted as a symbol of Judaism. And of course is widely recognized that way today, and that's why the Israeli flag has the Shield of David on it. That's not the official symbol of the State of Israel. You know what the State of Israel's official symbol is? The menorah. You'll see it on the official government documents. It's not the Shield of David or the whatever. So just be sensitive to that. It's in Revelation 13, speaks of the Antichrist, one of the two guys. Remember, the Antichrist is really a duet of two guys. There's a second guy that exercises all the power of the first beast before him and caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. The deadly wound is apparently the first beast has a head wound. He's thought of as dead, but he apparently comes back to life. His deadly head wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, that is the second guy here, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. That's something just Elijah used to do, right? And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, meaning the first beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by the sword and did live. In other words, whenever he wants to emphasize the first beast, that's always the identity. He had this wound by a sword, and yet he lived. An apparent resurrection from the dead, it would seem. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. He had power to give life to the image of the beast. Most of us think of maybe some kind of elaborate puppet or something. But when you see a movie like King Kong and so forth, and you realize what the technology has done, made possible, I should say, to create lifelike creatures, images of them, it really is breathtaking. And we have the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as should not worship the image of the beast should be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Strange place to receive an insignia of some kind. In their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Wow. The word there is for the seal or the mark is a charagma, a seal. A mark in the Torah is prohibited. A tattoo is prohibited. Leviticus 19 and 21, Deuteronomy 14, Isaiah 49, Ezekiel 9, and Exodus 13 are places where that is emphasized. And then the last verse of chapter 13 has spawned more books by more people. Here's wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. And his number is 666. And this is the 666. People who know nothing else about the Bible all know about the 666 as being somehow related to the Antichrist. 666. The word in the Greek, Christos, you take the first and last letter and put this funny little Greek letter that looks like a snake in between, and you get the Antichristos, the pseudo-Christ. And the first letter is worth, on the Greek geometric scale, is 600, the next one's 60, and the last one's 6. That's the way the 666 shows up in the text by the spelling of the Antichrist, interestingly enough. So we have those three numbers. Anyway, but whose number are we talking about? Not yours, his. It's amazing to me how many people look to insertable chips, or whether it's or RFID, radio frequency identification chips. That's a whole new industry coming. Or barcodes. They all sort of associate the 666. No, that's backwards. You got it backwards. Some barcode systems do use 6 as a separator, and so they see the 6 that in the middle and both ends. Aha, see, that's somehow the 666. Well, it may have some impact. Clearly, electronic funds transfer is an enabling technology for the coming world leader, no question about that. But taking on a credit card number and so forth isn't his number, it's your number. That's not the problem here. It's his number and name that are the critical identity. You don't get your credit card unless you take on his insignia. Where do you take his insignia on? Well, apparently on right hand or forehead. There's only one physical description of the Antichrist in the Bible I know about, and that's Zechariah 11:17. Last verse of chapter 11 of Zechariah. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. That's all we know. The speculation, it's a conjecture on the part of some scholars, that because he apparently has an impairment from this sword. He wasn't killed, he's alive, but he has apparently a bad eye and a bad arm. And that's why people taking an identity with him take his insignia on their eye or on their right hand. It's a way of it. If you were going to identify with John Wayne and True Grit, you'd get a patch, right? Eye patch, right? And or whatever. In other words, it's a way of identifying yourself with your hero, and that's apparently what it's talking about. And you don't get a PIN number or whatever for your ATM machine unless you are in with the good guys and you're aligned. You've declared allegiance to this leader. Which if you do, you forfeit any chance of ever being saved. And that's why it's such a big deal in the book of Revelation. So how interesting it is that Solomon's salary is that same number. Is there some kind of mystical link between the Antichrist and the King Solomon, the king of Israel? All kinds of conjectures, but they're just conjectures. Let's move on to 2 Chronicles 9, verse 15. And King Solomon made 200 targets, or shields, if you will, of beaten gold. 600 shekels of beaten gold went into one target. These are shields that weigh 70 pounds, 71.5 pounds. Can you imagine carrying one of those? They're decorative. They were just, it's a brag wall kind of thing. And 300 shields were made of beaten gold. 300 shekels of gold went into one shield. So they're half the weight, a little more practical probably. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Now if I ask you, where's the house of the forest of Lebanon? It's not in Lebanon, okay? That is the label for Solomon, a part of Solomon's palace. They called it the forest of Lebanon because it had all these 45-foot timbers holding up it's a huge room. So it was known as the House of the Forest of Lebanon. That's a formal title of this particular segment, the front end segment in the sense of the royal palace. And it was built of cedar pillars, and it also served as an armory, 1 Kings 10. 100 cubits long, so it's half the length of a football field. 50 broad, 30 high, and 4 rows of pillars and hewn cedar beams over the pillars. There were 45 side rooms forming 3 stories of 15 rooms each. The pillar hall, the porch lying between the house and of the forest of Lebanon, the throne room, then the judgment hall, and then the king's dwelling house, and also that of Pharaoh's daughter. So huge palace. It took almost twice as long to build the palace as it did the temple. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory, overlaid it with pure gold. And there were how many steps to the throne? 6. How interesting. How many fingers did a Nephilim have? 6. 6 fingers, 6 toes. How interesting. There were 6 steps to the throne with a footstool of gold. They were fastened to the throne and stays on each side of the sitting place, and 2 lions standing by the stays. And 12 lions stood there on one side and on the other upon the 6 steps. In other words, got a lion on each side of the 6 steps. You got 12 lions, but there's 6 here and 6 there. 6 lions to the left, 6 lions to the right, 6 steps. You got 6, 6, and 6 again. How interesting. There was not the like made in any kingdom, I can imagine. And all the drinking vessels of King Solomon were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was not anything accounted of in the days of Solomon. That's an interesting remark because, as I say, in the days of the Egyptian Empire, much earlier, there were times that silver was kind of very valuable because it was hard to find. That changed, obviously. For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Hiram. And what is Tarshish? That comes up in the scripture every once in a while. Every 3 years, once came the ships of Tarshish bringing gold and silver and ivory, apes and peacocks. If these ships come every 3 years, what do you think? So the round trip takes 3 years, right? So how far away is it? It's 1.5 years away. There's a lot of evidence that it was the British Isles. Interestingly enough, King Solomon passed all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. All the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom that God had put in his heart. What do we know about Tarshish? Well, it was a distant port from which silver, iron, tin, lead, ivory, monkeys, and peacocks were brought to Israel. 1 Kings 10, and Jeremiah 10, and Ezekiel 27. It's translated from the Akkadian to be smelted. That's what the name means. We know from Herodotus, chapter 4 of he wrote in the 5th century BC, that Tarshish was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. That means it's beyond the Pillars of Hercules. If you go from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, by Gibraltar there, you pass through what's called the Pillars of Hercules. Anybody's been navigating that would be a familiar term. Anyway, Herodotus says Tarshish is outside the Mediterranean. Okay? We know that Tarshish had strong ships capable of long voyages from Isaiah 60 verses 9, plus what we just read in Chronicles. A year and a half voyage in a ship means it's no fly-by-night ship. It's a rugged thing. There's a term called Britannia metal. Tarshish was an island about a year and a half away, which was, among other things, a key source of tin. Britannia metal was an alloy of 93% tin, 5% antimony, and 2% copper. It was used for making utensils, teapots, jugs, drinking vessels, candlesticks, urns, and other official maces. It was similar in color to pewter, but it was easier to work with than other alloys. So it is a metal that's common in the ancient cultures. Global commerce from Britain was confirmed by archaeological discoveries at Stonehenge at 1500 BC. That's what's sometimes called the Bronze Age. Tin was exported to Europe in large quantities from Cornwall, England during the Roman period. So this implies that Tarshish, it's not conclusively provable, but it is a reasonable inference that Tarshish is a reference to the British Isles. We know that Tarshish was as far away as they could think of from Israel. Because when Jonah was trying to flee, he took a ship to Tarshish. That's sort of like us taking a ship to China. It's a figure of speech to get away as far as you can think of getting, to get to the other side of the world, so to speak. And that's the way Tarshish was viewed, at least. Okay, so anyway, they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, vessels of gold, and raiment, harness, spices, horses, mules, a rate year by year. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities with the king at Jerusalem. And he reigned over all the kings from the river even unto the land of the Philistines, to the border of Egypt. And the king made silver in Jerusalem, as stones and cedars trees made he, as sycamore trees that are in the hollow plains of abundance. And they brought unto Solomon horses out of Egypt and out of all lands. Wow. His rule, Solomon's rule, extended from the Euphrates River to Egypt's border, 1 Kings 4. He had incalculable wealth that was largely produced by his trading expertise. Yes, he had all these incredible gifts brought to him, but at the same time, his trade was very skillfully organized and produced wealth that is beyond imagining. Now, his kingdom did not fulfill the Abrahamic covenant, Genesis 15:18. Why? Because many countries in that territory only paid tribute to him and were not assimilated into the nation of Israel. There's a technicality. Some people say, well, it was met. The Abrahamic covenant was met in Solomon's day. Not exactly. Close, but not quite. Now, the rest of the acts of Solomon, first and last, are they not written in the book of Nathan the prophet, and the prophecy of Ahijah the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer against Jeroboam the son of Nebat? These are books obviously lost. There's a long list of about a dozen of these sources that are referenced but have been long lost through history. And Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. That's pretty cool. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his stead. Which brings us to chapter 10. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for to Shechem were all Israel come to make him king. It's interesting, though Solomon had many, many sons. He had 1,000. He had 700 wives, and then 300 second-rate concubines were not prostitutes. They were just second-rate wives, so to speak. They had a status, but not that of a wife. And anyway, so he had a lot of sons. Can you imagine? None are mentioned, except Rehoboam, who turns out to be a mess, but okay. And he begot by Naboth the Ammonitess, and he apparently began to realize there was alienation on part of the northern part of the kingdom, so he goes up to Shechem, which was a major stronghold in the northern part. That's where Rehoboam goes to be formally crowned up in Shechem, and because it was important in Israel's life. It came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who was in Egypt, whither he had fled from the presence of Solomon the king, heard it, that Jeroboam returned out of Egypt. Now Jeroboam fled from Solomon the king. He was in exile in Egypt. When he hears that Solomon, that Rehoboam's out, he comes out into the light of day here. So this is all going to take place at Shechem, and Shechem is a very important town in the whole history of Israel. That's where Joshua reaffirmed the Mosaic covenant, and it's been more or less. It was one of the major cities, well, not a capital exactly, but close to that, in the north part of the country. And they sent and called him. So Jeroboam and all Israel came and spake to Rehoboam, saying, this is an important meeting now. Thy father made our yoke grievous. In other words, they're saying taxes are oppressive. Now therefore ease thou somewhat the grievous servitude of thy father and his heavy yoke that he put upon us, and we will serve thee. That's a cool deal. Solomon is excessively wealthy anyway. Taxes are way too high. Taxes themselves are relatively new because they didn't have taxes in the days of David. David funded most things out of his pocket because as the king, he received the bounty of these wars and he would distribute it. It's not the same thing as taxes. But under Solomon, there was taxation and it was very heavy. And if you relieve this yoke he put on us, we will serve thee. That's the deal. And he said unto them, come again unto me after 3 days. And the people departed. So that's their proposition. If he had a brain in his head, he would have taken it. See, Jeroboam was formerly the foreman of the labor in Ephraim, where Shechem was located. Ephraim is the county, and Shechem would be the city. And when he heard Solomon died, he returned from Egypt because he'd fled for some reason sometime previously. And so he was by popular demand, Jeroboam headed the delegation that appealed to lighten the taxation. Asking for 3 days to consider the matter, Rehoboam consulted the old advisors of his father who counseled him to listen to the Israelites. King Rehoboam took counsel with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, saying, what counsel give ye me to return answer to this people? And they spake unto him, saying, if thou be kind to this people, and please them, and speak good words to them, they will be thy servants forever. Good advice, right? But Rehoboam, he forsook the counsel in which the old men gave him, and took the counsel with the young men that were brought up with him that stood before him. And he said to them, what advice give ye, that we may return answer to this people which have spoken to me, saying, ease somewhat the yoke that thy father did put upon us? So he's surrounded by these young squirts that think they know everything. The young men that were brought up with him spake unto him, saying, thus shalt thou answer the people that spake unto thee, saying, thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it somewhat lighter for us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. For whereas my father put a heavy yoke upon you, I will put more to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. A scorpion is kind of whip with little metal pieces in it that catch the flesh, So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king bade, saying, come again unto me on the 3rd day. The king answered them roughly. And the king Rehoboam forsook the counsel of the old men. He answered them after the advice of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add thereto. My father chastised you with whips, I will chastise you with scorpions. So the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was of God, that the Lord might perform his word, which he spake by the hand of Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. He had already promised, God had promised Jeroboam that he would rule over the northern tribes. So this was the precipitating event, but there was a destiny here of the thing breaking up. And when all Israel saw that the king would not hearken unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? For we have none inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to your tents, O Israel. And now, David, see to thine own house. So all Israel went to their tents. In other words, Israel is declaring their independence of Judah, is what they're doing. Whereas the children of Israel that dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent to Hadoram, that was over the tribute, and the children of Israel stoned him with stones that he died. His tax collector gets murdered, in other words. No surprise. But King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. I can imagine he wanted to get out of that town pretty quick. He's in hostile territory. And Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. So the kingdom divides because Rehoboam's ill-advised policies. When Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he gathered the house of Judah and Benjamin and 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against Israel. From now, we've got to be careful now, because in this context, Judah is used as a phrase regarding the southern kingdom, Rehoboam and his gang. It is not just the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Simeon has already been folded into it, and its tribe of Benjamin is also aligned with them. So when they say Judah, they mean the southern group, which is Judah, Benjamin, and Simeon for sure. There's going to be more coming. And when they say fight against Israel, when they use that term in this context, it's the northern group. There's a northern group of tribes. Okay? They're not 10, and that's going to lead to another thing I want to get into. To fight against Israel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. So these men are going to try to fight Israel and try to reunite the nation. They're not going to make it, of course. But the word of the Lord came to Shimei, the man of God, this is a prophet, saying, speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all Israel in Judah and Benjamin, saying, notice that. If you got Judah, you got an area called Judah and Benjamin, but God is saying to the son of Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all Israel in Judah. In other words, there are members of all tribes down there. That's the point I'm going to get to. Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not go up nor fight against your brethren. Return every man to his house, for this thing is done of me. God speaking in effect. And they obeyed the words of the Lord and returned from going against Jeroboam. And Rehoboam dwelt in Jerusalem and built cities for defense in Judah. He built even Bethlehem and Etam and Tekoa and Bethzur and Shoko and Adullam and Gath and Mareshah and Ziph and Adoraim and Lachish and Azekah and Zorah and Ajalon and Hebron. Ajalon is a valley there in Beth Horon. Which are in Judah and in Benjamin fenced cities. Jerusalem is technically in Benjamin, not Judah, but it's right on the border. So Judah and Benjamin for this purpose are together, obviously. He fortified the strongholds, put captains in them, in the store of victuals and of oil and wine. And in every several city he put shields and spears and made them exceeding strong, having Judah and Benjamin on his side. And the priests, now get this, verse 13 is an important verse I want you to be sensitive to. And the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him out of all their coasts. Now get the picture. If you're a Levite, you did not inherit land in the first place. You had 48 cities. And your inheritance was God. You were all involved in the administration of the temple and the Levitical practices. Now you're in a region now that's under leadership that's hostile to the leadership you're loyal to, which is the temple. So what do you guys do, Levites? You up and move, those that are faithful, move south to join Rehoboam. With all his faults, he still has the temple, the priests, and all of that. So the priests and the Levites. Priests are Levites, but not all Levites are priests. You know the difference? Okay. The priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him, to whom, Rehoboam, out of all their coasts. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession and came to Judah and Jerusalem. For Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. And he ordained, that is, Jeroboam ordained, him priests for the high places and for the devils and for the calves which he had made. Jeroboam sets up golden calves in Dan and Bethel, and sets up his own priesthood to worship calves. If you are a Levite, that's an anathema. That's what you're delivered from. So when you see all that going on, you get out of town. You go down where it's politically correct to worship properly, right? You with me? It's important to understand that. I'm going to suggest, it doesn't say this, but I'm going to suggest that if you're down south and you're not faithful to the temple, you've had enough of all that stuff, you want to worship idols, where would you move? Up north, where it's politically correct. So there's a commingling of tribes. Don't confuse a label that's geographic with a label that's ethnic. You with me? Important to understand. Because there's more confusion about not making that description. So let's go on. And after them, now notice this, after them, that's the Levites, out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord God of their fathers. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and made Rehoboam the son of Solomon strong 3 years. For 3 years they walked in the way of David and Solomon. What it doesn't say, but I would assume, that the malcontents, whoever they might be, would go up north and hang with Jeroboam and his gang. You with me? Jeroboam, by the way, under Jeroboam I, they become incredibly prosperous up north. That's the whole mission of Hosea, is to go up there and explain to them. They think they've got it great, but not in God's eyes. That's later, but you get the picture. We have this myth that's all through English literature called the 10 Lost Tribes. And the idea is down south you had Benjamin and Judah. Up north you had all the rest of these guys. They affiliate themselves as the northern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin, the southern kingdom. By 722, God takes Assyria, uses Assyria to wipe out the northern kingdom. In 722, the Assyrians conquer the northern and deport them. They become slaves. They never appear again in history. They not only deport them individually, they scatter them. They had a policy of mixing, commingling. Captives from elsewhere, they planted in their place. They deliberately broke down the national identity of the northern kingdom. And the theory is that the tribes that were up there are lost because they then filter all through Europe and they become there's all kinds of legends that derive from the so-called lost 10 tribes. That's all, those are speculations that come out of a misreading of the scripture. Let's take a look at the tally here. The southern kingdom consists of Judah, Simeon, because it got assimilated into Judah earlier. So you got Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. That's the southern kingdom. No problem. What makes up the northern kingdom? Ephraim, that's the dominant one, and the word Ephraim often becomes the synecdoche or the generic for the whole group. When they speak of Ephraim, they mean the whole bunch often. Manasseh, Asher, Naphtali, Zebulun, Gad, and Reuben, and Dan. Whoops, there's one more missing. The Levites. Except the Levites have joined the southern kingdom, right? We know that for sure. Well, if there are 4 tribes in the south, how many are there in the north? 8. So there aren't 10 lost tribes. There might be 8. Okay, so if someone says, but 10 lost tribes, ask them to name what 10 you're talking about. You'll discover right away it doesn't hold any substance to reality. If there are some lost for some reason, these labels are geographic, not tribal, because by then there's commingling going on for all kinds of reasons. We together so far? Okay. This is the basis. There's a concept of British Israelism you'll run into, and all other kinds of legends that derive from this idea. It's amazing how militant some people are at clinging to these views. They're really quite incidental to our purposes, and at the same time, you'll find this whole 10 lost tribe idea is a misconception from a misreading of 2 Kings 17 and 2 Chronicles 6 and following. That's confusing the tribal terms rather than the geography. When the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom, which incidentally included remnants of all 12 tribes, they scattered their captives throughout the empire and repopulated the local area with captives from elsewhere. That was their policy. These descendants then in this area were known as Samaritans. Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom, gets conquered by Assyria. The people that they actually leave there and don't transport are in effect considered half Jews because they're commingled with other captives of the Assyrians. They did that deliberately to break down the ethnic barriers. That's why the Samaritans were viewed upon by Jews as half Jews, because they had roots, but they were contaminated in the Jewish mind. And you see that mentioned in Pentecost, Acts chapter 2, speaks of the 12 tribes. The epistles of James and 1 Peter are addressed to the 12 tribes. There aren't 10 lost. See, the faithful voted with their feet before the Assyrian captivity, long before that. Substantial numbers of the northern tribes identified themselves with the house of David. They moved down south. When Jeroboam rebelled, it caused many to repudiate the northern kingdom and unite with the southern kingdom in common alliance. That's what we just read about with the Levites, but it goes all the way through. You can find it in Second Chronicles 19, 30, 20, 34, and on and on and on. In 930 BC, Jeroboam ruled the northern kingdom from his capital in Samaria. Jeroboam turned the northern kingdom to idolatry. The Levites obviously migrated south. Horrified that Jeroboam set up a rival religion, calf worship, both at Bethel and Dan, many more northerners moved south, knowing that the only place acceptable to God was the temple on Mount Moriah. That did it. It's my inference that those who favored idolatry would migrate north. It doesn't say so, but that's a natural inference. Later on, the next king we're going to see after Rehoboam is Asa in the south. When he reigned as king in the south, another great company also came from the north. 2 Chronicles 15 will deal with that. And years after the deportation by Assyria, King Hezekiah of Judah issued a call to all Israel to come to worship at Jerusalem and celebrate the Passover. In other words, even long after the deportation of the northern kingdom, Hezekiah could call all Israel, not just Judah, all Israel to come worship. In 2 Chronicles 30, we'll see that. 80 years later, King Josiah of Judah will issue a call and offering the temple to come back from Manasseh and Ephraim and all the remnant of Israel. You see, you'll find, if you're watching, this whole 10 laws thing is a fiction. It doesn't jibe with the text at all. See, eventually all 12 tribes are represented in the south, and all 12 tribes are also in the north. And in 2 Chronicles 11, speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, the king of Judah, and to all Israel and Judah and Benjamin. We read that, chapter 11. And so the main point I want to get you sensitized to is distinguish between the tribal designations and the territories allocated. These are geographic terms, not ethnic terms. That's the point I'm trying to get across. And incidentally, Ephraim is sometimes used as a generic for the northern kingdom. The tribe of Judah is actually a phrase used generically for the whole southern kingdom. It doesn't mean just the tribe of Judah. It means the zone and his allies. So in 724, Shalmaneser V besieged Samaria for 3 years. And King Uzziah of Israel attempted to revolt against paying the Assyrians the tribute money. That was a big mistake. He had a treaty with the Pharaoh of Egypt, but that didn't help any. He gets white. Samaria, the capital of Jeroboam's world, fell in 722 BC. They pulled down towers, took captives, placed the Assyrian ruler over the city, and looted it, and so forth. And they implemented their policy of mixing conquered people to keep them from organizing a revolt. So the Israeli captives were mixed with Persians and others, and strangers from far-off lands were settled in Samaria. And that led to the mixed populations. Interestingly enough, not all of the northern kingdom was deported. Archaeologists have uncovered annals of the Assyrian Sargon, which tells that he carried away only 27,290 people. That's a relatively small number, and about 50 chariots, according to biblical archaeologists in 1943. Estimate the population were maybe up to 500,000. So less than 1/20th were actually deported. Most of them were just commingled with other tribes. Later on, the Babylonians are going to conquer the northern Assyria. And when they do, the Babylonian captives and the captives that they inherit with Assyria will be commingled again. So again, we got all 12 tribes involved in both things here. And Isaiah takes advantage, in prophesying to Judah, refers to them as the house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel. He's using the term Israel then in its collective total sense. The word Israel then can refer in some context just to the northern kingdom, which is what they call themselves. It can also mean the whole nation as a unified nation. That's the idea. And when the Babylonians later take over Syria, the descendants of the 10 tribes, or so-called 10 tribes, are probably again commingled with the other captives. The New Testament says the same thing. Jesus says, I come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And that's a collective term for the nation. Other tribes than Judah are mentioned specifically as being represented in the land, and all through the New Testament. 12 tribes are talked about in Acts 26 and James 1:1 and so forth. The reason I'm hitting this so hard is this is also the root of anti-Semitism. People who tend to try to make distinctions between the term Jew and Israelite. Well, a Jew means Judah, and Israelite means, again, they're trying to build something on the separation. No, that's not biblical. Ezra calls the returning remnant from captivity, he calls them Jews 8 times, he calls them Israel 40 times. He calls them all Israel in another verse. Nehemiah calls them Jews 11 times, calls them Israel 22 times, all Israel being back in the land in Nehemiah 12:47. In other words, these terms are not discriminatory the way some people try to make them. You want to be on your guard for that. That implies when you hear someone start to do that, they have an agenda. Be careful. Malachi also indicates that the entire remnant was called the nation. Malachi 1:1 and elsewhere. And remember Anna in Luke 2? She knew she was the identity of Asher. She knew what tribe she belonged from. Paul knew what tribe he was from. He was the tribe of Benjamin. He was a Jew and an Israelite. He's using those terms interchangeably. Paul was an Israelite and he was a Jew. But he was from Benjamin, not Judah. You see what I'm getting at? These people who try to make those distinctions are pursuing an agenda. The New Testament uses the term Israel 75 times in 73 verses. It uses a Jew 174 times. At the Feast of Pentecost, Peter cries, "Ye men of Judea," Acts 2, verse 14. A couple of verses later, he says, "Ye men of Israel." Same group, same audience. Holy Spirit's underlining something here for us, I believe. And then a couple of verses later, it says, "All the house of Israel," using it in the national sense. Right? So they're regathered as one. That's what the dry bones vision, Ezekiel 36 and 37, declares that Jews and Israel will be joined as one at the regathering. So there aren't tribes that are lost. Okay? And this is true today. They're being regathered. And all this underscores is the total physical descendants were not the people to whom the promises were made. To get into that one, get into Romans 9, verses 4 through 7. It's speaking to the Israel of God, not just the fact that they have Jewish blood. It's a whole other issue. Not just the physical. The physical descendancy is not the issue. Anyway, moving on. And Rehoboam took him Mahalath, the daughter of Jeremoth, the son of David, to wife, and Abihail, the daughter Eliab, the son of Jesse, which bare him children, Jewish, Shemariah and Jaham, and after her he took Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, which bare him Abijah, and Attai, and Azizah, and Shelomith. And Rehoboam loved Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, above all his wives and his concubines, for he took 18 wives and 80 concubines. Guys must have been exhausted. And begot 28 sons and 80 daughters. And Rehoboam made Abijah, the son of Maacah the chief, to be ruler among his brethren, for he thought to make him king. He dealt wisely and dispersed of all his children throughout the countries of Judah and Benjamin unto every fenced city, and he gave them victual in abundance, and he desired many wives. So everything's going swell, it would seem, until we get to the end of Rehoboam. We have an attack by Egypt that God uses here. It came to pass when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself and forsook the law of the Lord. See, that's his mistake. He's doing pretty good. He made some mistakes with taxation, but he made some other mistakes. He forsook the law of the Lord, and all Israel with him. It came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, the king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem because they had transgressed the law against the Lord. Rehoboam had not been ruling long, obviously, and it became that his border fortifications were not adequate to guard Judah against the invasion of the Egyptian army under King Shishak. That's pretty obvious. Shishak was the founder of the 22nd dynasty. We're going to be particularly interested in the 25th dynasty, a few dynasties coming. But Shishak had earlier given asylum to Jeroboam. So Jeroboam was a buddy of the king. And so the king is attacking the enemy of his buddy, the southern kingdom. See how you can just imagine the politics here. In Rehoboam's 5th year, the Lord brought Shishak as a punishment for Rehoboam's sin of abandoning the law of the Lord. Continuing the text then with 1,200 chariots and 60,000, 60,000, that's a formidable bunch in any man's army. And the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukims, and the Ethiopians. And by the way, something you may not realize, in that era, the Ethiopians were the successful warriors. Very powerful group. That's not obvious, unless you've done some study of ancient African history. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah and came to Jerusalem. Shimei the prophet said to Rehoboam and to the princes of Judah that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, said to them, Thus saith the Lord, ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Boy, can you imagine the king hearing that from the prophet of God? Ooh-wee. Thus saith the Lord. That's always a disturbing opening. Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the prince of Israel and king humbled themselves, and they said, the Lord is righteous. Well, that's interesting. They acknowledge. They don't make excuses. They acknowledge it. And when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shimei, saying, they have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance, and my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service, and the servants of the kingdoms of the countries. So Shishak, the king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made. Where does it say anything about the Ark of the Covenant? If they mentioned the shields of gold, you'd think they would have mentioned the Ark if they had gotten it. See, there's a big argument among scholars. Some think the Ark of the Covenant disappeared in the attack of Shishak. And there's evidence to the contrary. But I just want you to be aware that's one of 6 theories about the Ark of the Covenant, that Shishak took it. There's no evidence archaeologically or textually to support that. But he did carry away treasures, obviously. Shields of gold which Solomon made. Instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard that kept the entrance of the king's house. They're probably more practical anyway. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether, and also in Judah. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, for Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord hath chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonitess. And he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Wow. What a sentence. Think about that for ourselves. Do we do evil when we fail to prepare our heart to seek the Lord? You know, read these quaint expressions in the Old Testament. They may not come home to roost, but we're probably in his shoes. When we fail to prepare our heart to seek the Lord, we're sinning. We're not only disenfranchising ourselves from a benefit, we're actually indulged in sin. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And Abijah, his son, reigned in his stead. So there we are. Abijah and Asa are the 2 kings we're going to see in the next session. I want you to read for next session 2 Chronicles 13 through 16. We're going to, as we continue the rest of the book of 2 Chronicles, there's going to be a number of kings show up, but the key ones you're going to keep an eye out for is Asa next time, then Jehoshaphat, very colorful issue there, Joash, Hezekiah, and Josiah. Those are names I want you to be tuned into. Between Hezekiah and Josiah, there's a bad apple by the name of Manasseh. And you want to understand how bad that was in order to understand the peculiar things that occur in the days of Josiah. And you really want to understand, this is all in preparation to get to chapter 35 of 2 Chronicles, which is alone the price of the course, so to speak. Because there's some surprises there in the text that have been overlooked by, I would say, more than 9 out of 10 students that go through it. So we'll have some fun. But 2 Chronicles 13 through 16, let's stand for a closing word of prayer.
And that was pretty good. He talked about, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, he talked about how a lot of times the British wanted to make themselves Jewish, and I'm going, yeah, I know, I've heard those stories, or the Danish or whatever. They either wanted to be Jewish or they wanted to run the Jewish out on a rail.
Yeah, I like his little jokes. He cracks me up sometimes.
Anyway, but oops. Okay, no, We'll say goodbye to YouTube but y'all come back tomorrow because